After well over a year with nothing from Marvel Studios thanks to the coronavirus pandemic, the MCU is finally back, and if WandaVision is anything to go by, they're about to enter a bold, creative new era. It's easy to be skeptical about WandaVision, Marvel Studios' first foray onto the silver screen. Two of the MCU's lesser used and more oddball characters, headlining an homage to the sitcom genre with a dash of the Twilight Zone and the usual Marvel cinematic action mixed in. It doesn't quite sound real. I'm sure if you asked someone even a couple years ago where they thought the MCU might go following Avengers Endgame, this wouldn't have even cracked the top 100. Luckily for us though, it did, and Marvel's willingness to place it front and centre to usher in the latest era of the MCU makes clear how much faith they have in the project. After all, so far at least, this isn't their usual blockbuster affair. Marvel trusts that its audience is on board with whatever zany idea they present to us next. That's a trust built up over more than a decade of success and has given Marvel Studios all the confidence they need to try something new. And as these first two episodes of WandaVision show, that's going to pay off a treat for us all. Episode 1 begins as a glorious tribute to the sitcoms of the 1950s, opening credits and black and white picture in tow, with episode 2 shifting ever so slightly into the 60s. As someone who is admittedly not too familiar with this era, I'm sure there are references and jokes that eluded me, but the great thing about WandaVision is that that's not a barrier to enjoyment. Much of this show's audience will have never seen anything like the show tries to emulate in this opening episode, with I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show being cited as particular influences, yet the jokes still land. You can tell clear effort has gone into recreating these styles of sitcom without it descending into parody, and thus all the jokes work within the context of the show. Comedy back in the 1950s and 60s was entirely more innocent and employed a generous helping of slapstick, creating something everyone can enjoy. If anything, the setting allows more people to enjoy the show, as it strikes a friendly balance between appealing to kids and adults alike. The actors all need commending for the way they too fully embody the tone of the era. The cast is chock full of actors who have already found their footing in comedy. The casting of Catherine Hahn is a stroke of pure genius, and I can't wait to see Kat Dennings and Randall Park reprise their roles as Darcy Lewis and Agent Woo respectively. Yet it's Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany that delight the most with their performances. Paul Bettany's vision was always one of the more serious characters in the MCU, yet he had a certain fish out of water quality that made for some great comedic moments in past MCU films. That was more clueless than comedy though, but Bettany shows here he can more than make the translation. His performance is incredibly over the top, and paired with some of the brilliant facial expressions he makes, deftly captures the goofy comedy of the time. Elizabeth Olsen is the real breakout though. It's certainly a shame it took this long for her to get her due diligence, but it was certainly worth the wait. Wanda rarely got a chance to be happy within the films. Outside some brief moments in Avengers Infinity War before Vision was run through with a spear, we've never really seen a more light-hearted approach to this character. I'm sure this series is headed in a rather dark direction for Wanda, but in the meantime it's great to see a different side to the character. Olsen fully embraces the style and slapstick tone of the era, yet can slip seamlessly between her overtly comedic performance and the more sinister tone the show goes into at times. It's precisely those sinister, mysterious elements that will keep people tuning into the show each week. The comedy setting works brilliantly, but this is still a Marvel Studios production after all, and with that comes a lot of expectations that this is all building up to something bigger. What is set up in the first two episodes doesn't reveal much, but does reveal just enough to get people on the hook. Each of these moments sprinkled throughout the first two episodes marks a jarring shift in tone, and are actually quite unsettling against the sitcom backdrop. That's by no means a bad thing either. It presents viewers with a mystery, and alongside the weekly release of the show, will no doubt have people theorising between each episode, drumming up interest. Already this WandaVision feels like it's going to have massive implications for the future of the MCU, and as a fan of these properties, nothing could make me feel more excited. Despite what has been said by those working on the show however, I don't think WandaVision works too well as an introduction to the MCU. I find it unlikely that anyone would be jumping in at this point, but besides a few passing remarks, the show doesn't do too much to set up who these characters are. They're entirely different from how we've seen them in the films, so those moments where reality is clearly starting to bleed through are likely even more confusing for new viewers. I wouldn't exactly call that a detriment to the show. However, most MCU properties can be enjoyed independent of one another, besides the obvious exceptions of the Avengers film and numbered sequels, and I think WandaVision falls short of that achievement. If you thought the MCU couldn't get any wackier than a bounty hunting, smart-mouthed raccoon and his talking tree sidekick, then think again. WandaVision employs all the charm and coziness of its sitcom roots, providing genuine laughs and showing Marvel Studios can conquer just about any genre, all whilst cultivating a compelling mystery to keep viewers hooked. In all, this is a welcome and wonderful return to the MCU. It was never the plan to kick Marvel's Phase 4 off with WandaVision, but I don't believe anything else would have suited these times quite as well. We all need some light-hearted fun right now, and WandaVision has the added bonus that seeing these characters on screen again feels like greeting old friends, with all the warmth and comfort that entails. We'll see how long that feeling lasts as the mystery unfolds, but I'm incredibly excited to be along for the ride.